Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Dhritarashtra quits home. Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Whoever is under the influence of Supreme Kala, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things such as wealth, honor, children, land and home. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A great Indian scientist busy in the plan-making business, was suddenly called by invincible eternal time while going to attend a very important meeting of the planning commission, and he had to surrender his life, wife, children, house, land, wealth, etc. During the political upsurge in India and its division into Pakistan and Hindustan, so many rich and influential Indians had to surrender life, property, influence of time. Many poets have written verses lamenting the influence of time. Many devastations have taken place over the universes due to the influence of time, and no one could check them by any means. Even in our daily life, so many things come and go in which we have no hand, but we have to suffer or tolerate them without remedial measure. That is the result of time. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse is spoken by Vidura. He is specifically addressing Dhritarashtra. Vidura is enlightening Dhritarashtra about the facts of life. Now this instruction by Vidura is equally applicable to all of us, because we are living in this world ignorant of the effect of Kala, time. to actually properly understand what is this Kala or what is its influence is not very easy, even though we are always conscious of the fact that time is passing. We do make some plans for spending time in a proper manner, but actually we don't realize the real effect of Kala, which is destructive effect. The destructive effect of time is what we don't generally realize. Here, Vidura is explaining the important effect of Kala as something which is destructive. He is telling whoever is under this influence of supreme Kala, Kala is supreme because Kala overtakes everyone without exception. Everyone in this world, every created being. And the creation itself is happening under the influence of Kala or time. It is Kala which dictates cyclically there should be creation, maintenance and destruction of this material world. We don't realize that not only the entire universe or the entire material cosmic manifestation, but also every individual person within this world, created being, also has to undergo creation, maintenance and destruction continuously, without any cessation. Continuously this is going on. So, people do make some calculations that I've got so much time, I can plan to do something according to my own desires, but actually Kala does not take into consideration all our plans and desires. As they say, suddenly death comes. Almost always death is coming suddenly. So therefore here, as regards the situation of Dhritarashtra, Vidura is telling that very soon Dhritarashtra has to surrender his most dear life. Among so many things we may have in this material world as our possessions, the dearmost possession generally for most people is their own life. Therefore, at all costs, one tries to actually save oneself, especially when there is danger to one's own life. Then one is willing to sacrifice anything and everything for protecting one's own life in this body. What is ironical is that as spirit soul, we have no death. We don't die. We don't perish. We are not destroyed as spirit soul. But generally, most people have got the misconception in terms of I am the body. birth in this material world means it is due to this misconception only that I am this body. So, when we are forced to quit this body after a certain time duration called Ayu, the duration of life, when it's over, we are forced to leave this body. And at that time, because we have so many plans which are incomplete, or so many desires which are unfulfilled. What kind of desires? Material desires. Unfulfilled desires. So therefore, we are obliged to take birth again. We are obliged to take birth again. And this birth means there is going to be death. And death means, for those who are not free from material desires, those who are not free from material plans, again birth is certain. Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityu, dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Even though this is a fact, most people don't realize this. They are busy with their own plans and trying to fulfill their desires. Making so many different arrangements. Suddenly death comes, and that is when we have to surrender. So Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he says, a great Indian scientist busy in the plan-making business was suddenly called by invincible eternal time while going to attend a very important meeting of the Planning Commission. What distinguishes human life from animal life? An animal, Srila Prabhupada many times gives this example, it's like a goat. Generally they rear goats so that it can be, its flesh, when it is fully grown and nicely developed, its flesh, its body, then it is generally slaughtered and killed, and the flesh is eaten by meat eaters generally. So this goat, which is nicely taken care of while it is growing and fattening, then eventually it is going to be killed. So even when it is taken for killing, the goat does not realize that it is being taken for killing. And even while it is waiting for being killed, it is fed, let us say, some nice green grass. It is happily eating without any understanding, any warning. And suddenly it is killed for the flesh. Like that, even human beings, if they don't take cognizance of the fact that any time death can come and I should prepare for this death. Many people don't even know that there is something called preparation for facing death. And what is that preparation? It is to conquer this death that is possible in the human form of life. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, he first of all explains that we are spirit soul, we are not the body, and the spirit soul, as spirit soul, every person is changing the body, and even at the time of death, we have to change our body. Even at the time of death. So in that sense, there is no death for the spirit soul. If you consider that the soul is constantly changing body, there is no death. That means there is no annihilation of the soul. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. Nayam Hanti. It is not killed. The soul is not killed. But then what is death then? Death means it is also a change of body. But if we prepare for death, that means if we prepare for the change of body at the time of death, then we can conquer death in the sense that our change of body can be such that we revive our original spiritual form without having to change to another material body, which is again going to be destroyed in course of time. So this Punarjanma Jayaya, this is what is described as preparation for death. To this repetition of birth and death. To stop this repetition of birth and death. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, there is a nice description of the 4 kinds of annihilation in this material existence. Very interesting. Shukadeva Goswami is describing to Parikshit Maharaj in the end of the Bhagavatam, almost the end, that there are 4 kinds of annihilation. They are called Naimittika, Prakritika, Atyantika and Nitya. Naimittika means occasional annihilation. Prakritika means elemental annihilation. And Prakritika means elemental annihilation. And Atyantika means final annihilation. And Nitya means constant annihilation. 4 kinds of annihilation. So each one he describes, Shukadeva Goswami describes, that occasional or Naimittika destruction or annihilation is the annihilation that takes place at the end of Brahma's day. For that it is explained, 1 day of Brahma consists of 1000 cycles of 4 yugas according to our calculation on this earth. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyat brahmano viduhu. Brahma's day and night are of equal duration. That 12 hours of Brahma is same as 1000 cycles of the 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali on the earth planet. So within a day of Brahma called a Kalpa, there are 14 Manvantaras or lifetimes of 14 Manus elapse but before the end of Brahma's day, 1 Kalpa. So the duration of Brahma's night is of the same extent as the day of Brahma's day. So during his night, Brahma sleeps. And the 3 planetary systems, upper, middle and lower, meet with destruction. And all the living beings are absorbed in the body of Vishnu, Garbhodaka Shayi Vishnu. So the Naimittika annihilation takes place periodically at the end of every day of Brahma. So Brahma sleeps during his night, and when he wakes up in the morning, again he is reminded by Vishnu that he has to create once again. So sometimes people wonder, after Brahma does the creation at the beginning of this universe, what work does he have after he creates? No, Brahma's work of creation happens every day. Why? Because there is destruction at the end of Brahma's day. Before Brahma's night begins, there is destruction. So Brahma sleeps at this during this night, and again next day morning Brahma creates. Creates means Brahma has to give the bodies for all the living entities who are lying down. Again they are given new bodies. So this creation by Brahma has to happen every single day. Every single day. So it's not that Brahma creates only at the beginning of creation of this universe and then at the end, even Brahma has to die at the end of his lifetime. So till then what does he do? He keeps on creating every day of his, he has to actually create. So that is the first kind of annihilation, naimittika, occasional, which happens at the end of Brahma's day. Then when Brahma's lifespan of 100 years is finished, there occurs the prakritika annihilation. At this time, the 7 elements of material nature, beginning with the Mahat, are all destroyed, including the universe itself, the universal shell or egg, which constitutes these elements, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, the false ego, the mind, the intelligence, the senses, the sense objects, everything is destroyed. And they're all merged into the unmanifest state of material energy, the pradhana. So, at that time also, the living beings are absorbed into the body of Mahavishnu. So, the prakritika annihilation means even the elements don't remain. They're all destroyed and they go back to the source, the pradhana, from which they were generated at the beginning of the universe. Then what is described as atyantika or final annihilation, ultimate annihilation, is when a person achieves knowledge of the Absolute, he understands factual reality. He perceives the entire created universe as separate from the absolute truth, separate from Krishna. And therefore, he understands it is something temporary and therefore unreal. That is called atyantika or final annihilation, which is actually the liberation of the person from material existence itself, ultimate liberation. No more birth and death, no more wandering in different species or different bodies, no more change of body, no more miseries. So this is described as the atyantika annihilation. And the final one, the nitya annihilation or constant annihilation. Every moment, time is destroying every body, including every manifestation of matter, every material object. Just like this table, it is not a living being. It is a dead matter, object, material object, non-living object. But even this table, because of the constant annihilation effect of kala, of time itself, it is gradually losing strength. And we know how everything will become weaker and weaker and weaker. Ultimately, it will completely crumble. You might have sometimes heard, read in the news or even seen that some old building, dilapidated old building, how if they don't demolish it, it may completely crumble, fall apart, and then people sometimes even die because they don't take precautions to evacuate from such old dilapidated structures. So like that, time is invisibly destroying every single material object, including the material bodies of every living being. So therefore, constantly there is destruction happening which is imperceptible to all of us. This process causes everyone to undergo repetition of birth and death. Birth and death. Constantly we are undergoing birth and death. That's why Krishna says, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha. That for one who has taken birth, death is certain. And for one who dies, birth is certain. So all this birth and death, due to this constant annihilation by Kala itself, imperceptible, invisible, constant annihilation. Those who are having the spiritual vision, they can see how everyone who has taken a material body is subject to death and rebirth. Material life means subjugation to birth and death, or generation and annihilation, again and again and again and again. So, therefore, the conclusion is that there is no powerful living being within the universe who can overcome the influence of time. And everywhere around us we keep seeing so many natural calamities which destroy. Just like when there is a cyclone, not only there is destruction of so many buildings, or so many properties, but even people die when there is a cyclone or an earthquake, or when there is torrential rain. Suddenly there is torrential rain, and then some people who are not exactly prepared for it, they die in this torrential rain. Or there is suddenly a epidemic, outbreak of an epidemic. Just like 100 years back there was some Spanish flu. Millions of people died. In Calcutta, sometime in the 1920s, there was a plague outbreak, and so many people died in that outbreak. So suddenly these natural calamities can also come and end our life in this body. So we don't take note of this destructive effect of Kala. So Shukadeva Goswami concludes this description of the four kinds of annihilation by telling that the only boat suitable for crossing the ocean of material existence, which is otherwise impossible to cross, is the boat of submissive hearing of the holy name, fame, qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. You see? That is why Shukadeva Goswami, when Parikshit Maharaj asked him, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? Because Parikshit Maharaj was the most intelligent king of his time. So when he got notice of death, occasioned by a curse by a Brahmana boy, so he was cursed to die within 7 days, and immediately he retired from his royal duties. He handed over charge of ruling the kingdom to his son. He was not exactly old. He was still in the middle age. But still, when he got notice of death, and he could have counteracted that curse. The untimely death he could have counteracted. He had means for doing that. But he was very intelligent in that he realized, today or tomorrow or some years later, I have to die. So let me prepare for death. Now that I got notice of death, let me prepare for death. So he went away to a holy place, and in the association of saintly persons, he began to inquire, what should I do next 7 days to prepare for death, so that I can be successful in conquering death. All the scriptures are giving us instructions, instructing us that human life is meant for conquering death. Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita as Amritatvaya kalpate, that one is eligible for immortality, eternal life, if we are able to conquer death. And that conquering of death is possible by what Parikshit did. What did Parikshit do? He inquired, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? And it appears like many saintly persons, before Shukadeva Goswami arrived in that assembly, all other saintly persons, they were unable to give proper advice to Shukadeva Goswami, to Parikshit Maharaj, as to what he can do next 7 days, which will result in Parikshit being prepared to actually quit his body and achieve ultimate liberation. They said 7 days is very short time. It is not enough. But when Shukadeva Goswami arrived in that assembly, then Shukadeva Goswami was received by Parikshit Maharaj and all the assembled saintly persons as the greatest transcendentalist of his time. And when he was offered a seat of respect, then Shukadeva Goswami sat and he began to speak on the request of Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj asked the same question to Shukadeva Goswami. So Shukadeva Goswami assured Parikshit Maharaj, first of all, that 7 days is plenty of time to prepare for death. If you are willing to adopt the process I am going to recommend. So Parikshit was very eager to hear, what is this preparation next 7 days I must do for conquering death? And before telling the process itself, Shukadeva Goswami, to assure Parikshit Maharaj 7 days is plenty of time, he cited the instance of one Khatvanga Rishi. Khatvanga Rishi, he attained perfection in just one muhurta. One muhurta is just 48 minutes. Just in 48 minutes time, Khatvanga, he was able to prepare himself. When he came to know that he's got a balance of duration of life, just one muhurta. What happened was, Khatvanga's story is described, the incident is described in the Bhagavatam by Shukadeva Goswami himself. This Khatvanga was very long back, he was much before Krishna. He was the emperor of the earth. And then he was very expert in fighting. Therefore, the Devatas once wanted to take his help to conquer the Asuras. And therefore, the Devatas, seeking his help, they called him to fight against the demons. And in that battle, fierce battle, Khatvanga fought very, very bravely, very chivalrous way. And then the Devatas were able to win against the Asuras. As you might be aware, there is always a competition between three categories of persons who live in the upper planets for the supremacy of the heavenly kingdom, Swargaloka. Who will rule the heavenly planets and be completely enjoying the heavenly king's post. So there is a competition between three categories of persons in the upper planets. Who are they? The Devatas, the Asuras and the Rakshasas. So between these three categories of persons, there is always constant competition. So at any time, the Asuras can attack the Devatas if the Devatas are ruling and take charge of ruling. Just like Hiranyakashipu, he became very powerful by performing tapasya, and he was ruling from Indra's throne, that throne of the heavenly king's post. Then Bali Maharaj, once he defeated Indra, and he was ruling from the heavenly kingdom. Ravana, he was a Rakshasa. Bali was born in the family of Asuras. He was not exactly a demon, he was a devotee. But he was born in the family of Asuras. He was ruling. Hiranyakashipu was an Asura by his nature also. And he was born in an Asura family. So he also was ruling. Asura was ruling. Once Ravana was ruling, Ravana was very, very powerful. And he defeated Indra and all the Devatas, and he was also ruling. He was a Rakshasa. So like this, there is always competition between the different residents of the upper planets for this supremacy over heaven. So Indra was able to win against the attack of the Asuras by the help of Khatvanga Rishi. He was a Rajarshi. Of course, he was a saintly king. He was a king, but he was a saintly king, just like Arjuna. The Pandavas, they were Rajarshis. So like that, he was a saintly king. So he helped the Devatas win, and the Devatas were very pleased at the end of the battle when they were victorious. And they all came to Khatvanga to thank him. And they began to glorify his wonderful fighting ability, and they began to offer him different boons. So they said, you ask whatever you want from any of the Devatas, if they have the power, because different Devatas have different powers to grant some boons. So they all came in front of Khatvanga Rishi and Maharaj, and they began to offer. So Khatvanga, after hearing each of them, he said, before I can ask anything from any of you, let me know one thing. What is that? How much balanced duration of time I have to live in this body? See, another sign, a sign of another very, very intelligent king. Very intelligent king, just like Parikshit Maharaj. Khatvanga Rishi also was, Khatvanga Maharaj was very, very intelligent. So he asked this question, so they did some calculation and said, you just have one muhurta time. That's all. 48 minutes. So immediately Khatvanga Maharaji said, I don't want any of your benedictions. What will I do with them? So he immediately left that place, went to a holy place and sat in meditation upon the Supreme Lord Krishna within his heart. Obviously, he had practiced this earlier, and he was conscious that before death comes, I should completely be fixed in meditation on Krishna. My mind should be fixed on Krishna. And therefore, 48 minutes time, he simply sat in meditation on Krishna within his heart, which obviously he had practiced earlier. And in this way, being completely absorbed in meditation on Krishna, thought of Krishna, He quit his body when death came and he straight went back to God. You see, successfully he has conquered death by preparing very intelligently whatever balanced time was there. So, citing this instance of Khatwanga Maharaj, Shukadeva Swami assured that if you can fix your mind upon Krishna, and simply by remaining absorbed in thinking of Krishna, mind fixed on Krishna. Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevram yaprayati samadbhavam yatina atra samshaya. Or mayeva mana adatsva may buddhim niveshaya nivachishyasi mayeva ata urdhvam na samshaya. So many places Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita. Fix your mind upon me always. Always think of me. Manmana bhava. Ma manusmara. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara. Always think of me all the time. So, even if one is not able to always think of Krishna, if one has practiced remembering Krishna while executing one's other duties, so then there is notice of death. For somebody who is very, very alert, there is notice of death. Just like Vidura is now going to describe to the Dhritarashtra, there is already notice of death for you. The approaching of old age, symptoms of old age, is notice of death. So, you should be preparing for fixing your mind upon Krishna to actually face death. And what are you doing? You're simply trying to enjoy some royal comforts, which Yudhishthira has very kindly offered to you out of respect for you, out of gratitude towards you as your nephew. He has been very kind and gracious to offer you all these nice facilities, but you are completely forgetful of your responsibility, that what are you supposed to do before death comes? You're completely forgetful. So he's reminding, death is going to come and suddenly you will have to quit the body. Are you ready for it? So that warning Vidura is giving. So great personalities like Parikshit Maharaj, Khatwanga Rishi, and all great transcendentalists, they are actually very conscious of the fact that before death comes, we should actually be preparing ourselves to actually fix our mind upon Krishna. Now, for fixing the mind upon Krishna, there are so many different methods, of which the best method is the method of Bhakti Yoga. Because in Bhakti Yoga, what happens? One naturally develops a attraction, a attachment to Krishna by practice of Bhakti. The whole practice of Bhakti is to purify our consciousness, to awaken that natural attraction for Krishna which is already there in our heart. As you would have heard many times earlier, each one of us, we have got an eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna in His kingdom, in His personal abode. We belong to that abode of Krishna and we are many in a struggle for existence in this world. So to end this, Krishna is teaching us in the Bhagavad Gita that simply specific understanding is possible by purification of our material misconceptions. So by practicing Bhakti Yoga, we are able to purify the heart and understand and realize who we are, realize who is Krishna and what is my relationship. And then by actually constantly engaging in devotional service to Krishna even before death comes. Practicing this, specifically this chanting of the holy name of Krishna, especially in the form of this Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We are able to actually prepare ourselves, and that we will see how Vidura will instruct Dhritarashtra very nicely about preparing for this death, impending death, which will come all of a sudden. And not only that, one has to surrender his life at the time of death, but one has to surrender everything else connected with this body. The possessions, we are so much attached to material possessions that we have to give up. That is another thing we don't realize. Though we know that we cannot take anything with us when death comes. Nobody can take anything with them when they have to quit the body. But somehow we forget this essential fact that all our possessions we have to give up at the time of death, including the body itself, which we have to give up. So that also Vidura is reminding. Pranai priyatamairapi janasadyo vyujjeta kim utanyir dhanadibihi. What to speak of the other possessions, wealth or honor or children or land or house or whatever be the possessions, everything we have to give up. When we give up our body itself, everything in connection with the body. Right? This is very nicely described in the Bhagavatam as aham mameti, this misconception that I am this body, aham. Aham, this feeling of I am this body, this misunderstanding. That is where material existence begins. Birth in this material world entails this misunderstanding of I am this body. And as a result of this misconception, when I think I am this body, then obviously the body has some connection with bodily relatives. Just like generally one takes birth from mother and father. So identify so and so as my mother, and then so and so as my father. And then the relationships in connection with father and mother, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, so many relationships. And the possessions in relationship with the body, my clothes, my house, my wealth, my whatever possessions. So like this we develop mama, aham and mama. Aham mama iti. This is the whole trap of the illusory energy to completely mislead us into thinking I am this body, which I am not, which nobody is. And the bodily connections as mine, based on the body. My father, my mother, my possessions, my wealth, my honor, even things like false prestige. So many things. My position, my honor, respect in society, and so many things. All this will become attached, and consequently, when death comes, this attachment is going to be a big obstacle for us to actually give up all these things. We are forced to give up, and it's a very, very painful situation. Being forced to give up something which we don't want to give up because we are very attached. And then the fear that accompanies, the traumatic fearful situation, because I don't know what is going to happen to me. Where am I going? How will I live or exist without my near and dear ones, without my possessions, without Without even a body, how am I going to live? Gross body. So it is a very, very fearful situation for somebody who is in ignorance or somebody who is not prepared. Therefore, the scriptures say, prepare for death before death comes by becoming spiritually enlightened. Spiritual enlightenment is the only way. And that spiritual enlightenment is not possible by our ordinary education system. Nobody is educated about these realities of life in the regular universities or schools or colleges. Unfortunately, the education system is not teaching the most essential thing. So the scriptures are giving us this most important knowledge. Brahma Vidya, spiritual understanding, spiritual knowledge. And that's why it's so important that people should cultivate this knowledge side by side, along with getting some knowledge about material things for the sake of maintaining this body or earning a livelihood. Yes, that is required, but that is not enough. That is not enough. That is not going to help us to face death and the consequent traumatic, fearful situation. And we are forced to be separated from everything that we know of as I or mine, and be forced to be forced to give up. So instead of facing that situation, being unprepared, in ignorance, unenlightened, so we should become enlightened by hearing, most important process of hearing from the proper sources about these facts. So Bhagavatam is full of such instances of great personalities, either themselves showing by their own example or instructing others for others' benefit. What is this death, and what happens in death actually, and how to prepare for death, and what is that preparation, and what is that knowledge we have to get, and also not only just acquiring knowledge in terms of the theory or the information, but also realizing that and living a life based on this understanding. That is even more challenging, bigger challenge than just merely the matter of understanding these truths or these facts. It's not just understanding, it's also realizing. So some practices are essential, some spiritual practices. So the easiest and the most recommended process is this chanting and hearing of the holy name of the Supreme God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Let's stop.